Welcome back to the second episode of this series where we talk about IPOs and Euronext. Make sure if you have not watched the first episode where it's all about an introduction to IPOs and Euronext to go back and watch it first. And today we are talking about IPOs specifically for Swiss companies. So let's first rewind and understand, when do you think is it the right use case for an IPO versus taking on more venture capital, even venture debt, maybe or private equity?
The question of when is a big question, Cedric, and this is something I'm discussing very much with entrepreneurs and also with the investment banks. What is the right timing? What we typically say is that the right timing is when the company has done a seed round of maybe 1 to 2 million, it has completed an A round of 5, let's say, a B round of 10, and then what comes next? And next is, 15 plus. That is often a time when the valuation of the company is good. It has quite a large team, maybe 40 to 60 employees. It is ready to do the next step. The technology risk is then limited, or it's managed. The company has proven that it can do sales. And now is the next step, the scale up of the business opportunity. And that is where an IPO can come into use.
Now, when you look at the practicalities of it, how do you prepare these companies that, completed the Series A, Series B, and are now considering an IPO?
What we say to them is they should do the preparations that they would do anyway for a private round. And the preparation is very similar also for an IPO, because that is what a bank would want to see, an investment bank would want to see as the preparation from the company. We also briefly discussed in the last episode, the company should have a good team and it should have a balanced team. It should also have a board so that it has sufficient corporate governance. And it needs to have the willingness to open up. That is quite important. It is a different way of being than being a private company.
When you look at the financing needs that we have here in Switzerland, when you look at, let's say, the landscape of angel investors, venture capital, private equity, where do you see Euronext fit into this ecosystem?
So what we are seeing more and more in Switzerland lately, and we also saw that with the new statistics coming from Startup Ticker, is that also in Switzerland, companies are thinking bigger. They have global ambitions, at least European ambitions, and they want to stay independent and realize this opportunity themselves. And for that, they need substantial money. We're talking often, 20 plus. We're seeing rounds now which are becoming more frequent with 50 million, 60 million, 70 million. And this is the kind of opportunity that can also be realized with an IPO.
And when you look at, let's say, the concrete advantages of financing of an IPO, what is it that makes it, let's say, quote unquote, better to have a publicly listed company versus taking on further investors like venture capital?
What we often see is that entrepreneurs are very conscious of the time when they would like to go to the next step. They want to open up the company and they can also see the benefit of being a stronger, independent management team and founders team. They don't want to have a too strong independence of investors. And they want at least to have a balance there, and that is what they're trying to realize. And that is why we often see them coming in a C or in a D round, like it was now the case with Sequana Medical yesterday.
Now, when you look at, for example, the minimum size, if you have to give hard facts numbers, an entrepreneur is thinking of an IPO, what is the minimum of team members, revenue, traction that you can measure, where you feel like this is the benchmark, or these are the key multiples that you have to achieve before you can even consider?
Depending on the sector, this is I have to answer this question in a differentiated manner. In life sciences, the company can come to the stock exchange and it can be pre-revenue. In ICT and in clean tech, it should have revenue. It also, in ICT, mostly the innovation is not so time-consuming and so complicated, also from a regulatory point of view, as it is in life sciences. I also, of course, talk with the founders and the management when it comes to valuation, and very important, they need to show how they will deploy the capital that they're raising. And they need to show that in a fairly detailed manner, and it has to be credible and suit the story that they're trying to sell.
You see a lot of startups here in Zurich and in Switzerland specifically. What would you say is your perspective on the Swiss startup ecosystem?
I think it has professionalized vastly over the last 10, 15 years. It's really exciting to see how professional companies are nowadays. What I also see, and this is especially, of course, from ETH Zurich, but also from EPFL in Lausanne, we see very many very interesting deep tech companies coming out here. We see companies that really can change the world and create a better world for us. We also see that these companies are handling risk in a better way than used to be the case in the past. And they have huge ambitions. They really want to do it themselves in an increasing manner. And for doing that, we are seeing these large private financing rounds. We're seeing increasingly also IPOs. And this is a development we want to support and continue. So a very rich, very interesting fundus of technology-based ventures. And these are the companies that we want to bring forward.
Now, you just mentioned risk. How is that, handled differently than it used to be?
Swiss culture is quite risk averse. We see that both in the Swiss German part, just as well as in the French speaking part of Switzerland. In the past, that was maybe more prohibitive, whereas today people are at least trying to manage it, and they are coming to terms with it to an increasing extent.
When you look at, let's say, this Swiss startup ecosystem, do you see a few things that maybe can be improved?
I think we are on a very good journey in terms of professionalizing the whole scene. It is great to see, the number of people who are conveying knowledge, who are improving the skill set of entrepreneurs. We do also see, quite good events. We see also more and more the acceptance of risk, of failure also, that is being talked about. That was not possible before. But we are on this journey and it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. Of course, we need to calibrate so it is not too much events and too much coaching. We have to make it very concrete for these companies so that they are on a voyage where it's not about winning competitions, but really about developing the companies further and to the next step.
One last question. You briefly mentioned pre-IPO tech program that you offer. What exactly is part of this course and what are you offering there?
What we have seen in the past is that going to the stock market is a big step. It is a step where you need a different way of thinking. And we wanted to prepare CEOs, CFOs and other management members, maybe also persons from the board, when it comes to their skill set, when it comes to going and being public. This is about instruments on one side, but it's also about developing capabilities and understanding the subtleties of what it means to be a public company and how this can be managed. I think there are many experiences here that can be learned from. And we've done this now since 2015. We started last year. We are now in the middle of the first class in Switzerland. And already this group of 10 companies have really made great improvements forward. It is really fun to be part of it together with them. We had a kickoff in HEC in Paris. We have 8 events in Switzerland and federally well distributed all over the country. And we will have a graduation event in Lisbon, in Portugal.
Very good. Soren, thank you so much for this episode. Thank you very much, everybody who tuned in to this episode where we talked about IPOs for Swiss companies specifically. Next time, we will talk about challenges around IPOs, and I'm very curious to hear Soren's answers. See you there and have a great day.